welcome to Clamp, the weekly podcast where we talk about all things creating, living, and making projects. I'm the host, Grant Alexander, and joining me this week is Jesse Ratfink. And because Adam's internet sucks, we have a returning guest, Chris from Cowdog Craftworks. Thanks for coming on, Chris.
No, thanks for having me. I didn't expect to be back on so soon, but here I am.
Yeah, well, we do appreciate you coming back on, especially on such short notice. But we wanted to talk to someone about trends, and you're a very trendy guy, so here we are. But in reality, our conversation. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say I'm the opposite of trends. I'm sort of reverse trending. I'm like trying to go back like thousands of years. But anyway, continue.
Well, you're just a trendsetter before you even know it. So in reality, recently there's been this trend of pencil sharpening that started from the Working Hands podcast. And they had a little conversation where like it was a joke that if you sharpen a pencil, you're a woodworker because pencils are made out of wood. So everyone was sharpening their pencils in interesting ways. And then the trend kind of went out of control once a couple of the big names started posting them. And I thought it was an interesting thing to see these trends and talk about them and maybe how good they are or how bad they were. And we'll be talking about different trends throughout the discussion today. And we have a list of different trends, and Chris doesn't have the list. And we've done this on purpose so that he can react to the different trends and give his honest opinion on whether or not he likes the trends, doesn't like the trends, whatever. All right. So we're all good?
Yeah, I'm strapped in. Seatbelt.
All right. All right. So the first trend and so we got this list. We made it together, and then we also probed our friends on the Makers on Zoom having coffee group, and we came up with a long list of stuff. And we're going to start it off with tiny homes.
I don't hate them. I'll start with that.
All right.
Anybody else have thoughts?
I find them very aesthetically pleasing, but useless. Like, there's no living you can do in it. Like, it would be a lot of outdoor living. I can't imagine having pets or children. You really either, I guess, need to be single or really committed to your partner and really okay with living on top of one another at all times.
Yeah, to me, they're really dope Airbnbs, and that's kind of like the extent of it. And as somebody who works out of a very tiny shop, like I can tell you where that sort of bleeds in is exactly what you just said, Jesse, is that you just tend to be outside more. So like I move a lot of like my equipment, I move a lot of like my workspace, sort of out of my garage, and I utilize sort of this little porch space that I have. That's sort of what you're forced to do there. So if you don't have like a whole plot of land to have your tiny house on, then you're sort of kind of being a little counterintuitive. And then you're also in this situation where it's like, okay, like if you have all that land that you're utilizing, then why don't you just have a bigger house? Like, what are we doing? So, yeah.
I think tiny homes look cool. And I think that the whole trend started when someone saw a mobile home or a trailer and said, I want to live in that, but I don't want to be like Trailer Park Trash. So let me just call it a tiny home.
Yeah.
As someone who is Trailer Park Trash, I agree. Yeah. They definitely were like, that was a good idea, but let's make it cuter. That was pretty much it.
So weird offshoot of this trend though. And it's sort of, I don't know if it's still in or if it's just a little bit passe now, but what are you guys' thoughts on shipping containers in this whole tiny home sort of field?
Another thing that is impractical over time. It looks great short term, but there are so many considerations for different climates with those that I just like, I'm not buying it.
I feel like shipping containers are like nothing. They're cladding on the outside of your house, and now you've made your house a stupid shape.
Yeah.
Like, so, I think they have a place like a shop, like, or a storage. Great. They're great for storage. It's like that's what they were made for. But like actually trying to live in one, I just go, you've combined your, like as soon as you make them into a bigger, like you start cutting the stuff out, you've lost the structure. So now you have to build structure in. So you haven't bought anything. You bought scrap metal at that point.
And that's actually kind of what I was going to get at a little bit. Probably not from the same perspective necessarily, but my buddy PJ, he lives super close to me at PJ_Fetcher on Instagram. He's a Sawyer. But anyway, a block over from his house, there's a really cool shipping container house. And I want to say it's like 7 or 8 containers that are kind of like conjoined together in sort of unique ways. It gives it a little more space. But honestly, from the outside, because it's all stuccoed over and they, surfaced everything, it looks really nice. You can't really tell that it's a bunch of shipping containers. So from the outside, it's like, oh, like that's just a very, very modern square looking house. But, I was driving by when it was being built. So I was like, oh, like this is rad. But, at the end of the day, like, I think you're absolutely right, Grant, is like, once you start cutting out all these walls and doing all this, extra stuff to it, like, are you really then, I guess, having that, looking at the cost benefit analysis, right? Like, are you then saving that much money by using the shipping container, or are you just kind of doing it to say that, like, I'm using recycled material?
And there's so much better use for that material. Like, metal is the thing that we can recycle forever. So there's no reason to say I've saved this from the landfill when it's metal, because it wouldn't ever go in a landfill. Like,
facts.
Fair point.
All right. But on that topic, the trend of and thinking about the getting this tiny home and then living outside of it, it's this homesteading trend that I've seen, and there's a couple of people I watch on TikTok that have almost homesteads, or I don't know. Homestead just means house. I looked it up because Austin said his place is a homestead, and I was like, what do you mean? And I looked it up, and it's just like, oh, it's just a house. It's the house you live in is your homestead. And I went, oh, okay. But the homesteading is like trying to live off the land, and a lot of tiny homes homestead. And what are you guys' thoughts on that?
So this was actually really big in like the early 2000s. Probably due to September 11th, let's be honest. But it was very, very big on Instructables. And I just remember seeing people doing the craziest shit, just recycling every single thing they could, earth bag homes and homes made out of like glass bottles for all the walls, just like the craziest stuff. And I feel like it's more practical this time around, but also selling people on something that's not entirely possible for most people with the amount of time and land that they have. So now it's more like aspirational. I feel like before homesteading was more survivalist, and now it's very Pinteresty, like cute. We have a lot of chickens and we grow our own corn. It's more that instead of like butchering animals and, making fertilizer for your garden.
I will say, so I shared a birthday with Ann Briggs from Ann of All Trades. So this past September, I spent a weekend with her, and homesteading is not for me. I'll just say that flat out. I got to really observe it firsthand, and not that there's anything wrong with it by any means. Like, it is super cool, but it is 100% a full-time job. Like, to see her routine, and she doesn't, like, when we talk about homesteading, right? Like, she does a lot of stuff, but like, I don't know if this is the right word for it, but it's almost like co-op-y in a way where like, so she's sort of responsible for like the dairy stuff. So she like she milks the dairy cow. She handles all the milk, like makes butter, does cheese. And then they swap a lot of stuff with like other people that are in the area that sort of like live like similar lifestyles. So it becomes like this little sort of trade barter thing. But I mean, it's a ton of work. Like, gosh, like every day, like I would have my coffee and kind of be like hanging with her husband, Adam, for a little bit, and then make my way down to the shop. And I mean, Anne, after she got done, with the cows and the donkeys and God knows whatever else, and then randomly milking a goat in the middle of the day. Like, I mean, she could only be in the shop like really for maybe like 2 to 3 hours at any given time. I mean, just the responsibilities of that it's huge. And there's so much to consider. It's insane. Just at the time, her donkeys were like a little overweight. So she did this thing where like she was basically like running them on a diet where I forget what it was. It was like she closed off a bunch of the gates that like had the good grass. So like the donkeys, like, well, they're mini donkeys, like couldn't get to the grass. So then it forced them to like walk up this huge like hill to the house to try to like get some grass up there. And then they would like walk back down. So just things like that, like thinking about stuff like that. I mean, all the science behind it too, it's a ton. Like it just does not seem like, you know, somebody who's just like, hey, like I want a couple chickens. Like, yeah, that's not homesteading. You know, like that's not really what the vibe is. Like it is a full occupation.
I think you're right. If you actually want to live off your land, you can't do it with a couple of chickens. I want a couple of chickens. I don't want a homestead. I want a couple of like pet chickens. Like that's what I want. We're not allowed to have them here, so it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, my mom's in a little bit of like this, I'm calling it a golden years crisis. She's like in her late 70s, and she decided to get a bunch of chickens.
Oh, wow.
She's discovering how hard that is, you know. She's got a bunch of chickens and a couple of rabbits. And actually, like a couple of the chickens have gotten eaten by some mystery animal. So
yeah,
she's now like trying to like protect the last one. And mechanics. And my mom is this adorable, like less than 5 foot tall Asian woman. And it's just like hilarious to like watch her, like, you know, doing all this. But actually Sunday I'm going over to like build I say build, but really I'm assembling a pre-bought chicken coop like in her backyard to try to like save this last one who got super big, I got to say. And with the price of eggs down here these days, I mean, I'm very supportive of this venture of hers. So.
Yeah, when I went to Maker Camp with Andrew Zito, he was telling me about how one of his dogs like killed one of his chickens, and I was like, that sucks. And then like another one just like got eaten or something, and he's like, this sucks. Like I was starting to have like a vibe with these chickens, and now they're gone. And it's like weird. It's like, whoa.
Yeah, people do not understand how much animal husbandry is part of homesteading. And I think it makes a lot of people very uncomfortable because, you know, a lot of people, they have maybe a cat or a dog that passes away, but you don't quite have like chickens ripped apart by foxes all over your front yard normally in your life. So it's just, yeah, you find out that nature is pretty metal a la the subreddit, which I highly recommend.
All right, we're going to move through some of these a little quicker because I think some of them are small ones that we can just shit on. Saw blades in your logos. Go, Chris.
I mean, I got a dog with a cow udder. I have no place to talk about things like this.
Well, that's the whole point.
So, is it offensive? No. Is it a little played out? Yes. I mean, the big thing that drives me nuts, and this is sort of tangential to this, is when you have the name Millworks in your like brand name, but you don't actually do any milling. Like you don't have a sawmill, you don't like do moldings and stuff. Like I just be gone.
What if your last name is Millwork?
That's fine.
Okay.
You can explain
just
that later.
All right. Jesse?
I'm happy they're not as popular now. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. I think when I joined Instagram, I had like I designed up a lot of different logos for my thing, and like a saw blade was in like 5 of them, and so was a hammer, and I ended up going with a twig from the Labrador flag. Yeah, I agree. If you have a saw blade in your logo, rethink your logo because that trend is over. French cleats. I, for one, like everyone, and every couple of years I see like just this revival of French cleats are amazing. And I think they're great, but I don't know. Like, I think that trend needs to die and someone needs to come up with something better. They need to be freedom cleats.
The problem is that I don't know, it's very hard to improve on it. Like, there's not really, like, what are you going to do? Like, it's a really smart, strong thing. I mean, I use them, you know, like I've got all sorts of like weird, like wall hanging devices, like in my shop. I'm a big wall control guy too, but I mean, hey, I use French cleats. I actually just built a sawtill the other day, and I did a live edge French cleat. So like I had it was live edge with obviously a straight edge on one side, I ripped the 45 down, and then I used the side with the live edge as like sort of the bottom, and then the actual part that's in my piece of whatever, my sawtill, that actually hangs on that. So you get sort of this seamless look, and then you get a little bit of the live edge kind of in the background. It's a very understated kind of thing. But I mean, it's strong. It works. Yes, I agree it's a little played out, but I mean, what are you going to replace it with is ultimately the question. There's not really anything that's as easy and as modular and simple.
I think that you should actually use the best thing for the place. Like you said, you have wall control. I have wall control. I also have French cleats. I also have just like, I think sometimes just making just a tool wall that you can just like make a piece for individually for each tool. Like French cleats don't need to be the be all end all answer for all of your things. Use what makes sense. Don't try and shoehorn everything into a French cleat.
I don't know. I really like the look of it. And if I was ambitious enough, I would do it. But I'm not. So I use pegboards.
All right. Well, how about tensegrity tables? That was a trend that got that was a hot trend for like a minute and a half.
Yeah. Those just need to burn in hell and die.
Yeah. Okay.
Covenant strong. I like it. It's still happening on Instructables. This is an ongoing trend. The teachers have found it and they love that shit. So I'm still seeing them. It's still very real to me.
The worst part about it is the YouTube thumbnails, because then they like Photoshop out the strings and they're like, look, it's a floating table. I'm like, no, bro. I see the wires.
Only John Malecki did that. Only John Malecki. Everyone else has it. John Malecki's the only one. And you have to listen to some after shows to hear my thoughts on him. I think they're a really cool and neat thing to show off. Like a teacher showing it off makes sense. It is not a practical table. Stop trying to make it one. Altoid tins. Shoving everything into an Altoid tin. Like, Jesse, take it away. The things you've seen.
So this is sort of a nostalgia one for me, where like the Minty Boost chargers or TV Begons put in Altoid tins, that was super big probably in the early 2010s. So this is kind of like nice and warm and fuzzy for me because it's not everywhere anymore. It was just a blip for a bit.
I do recall seeing like people using Altoid tins as a base for a lot of different like projects for a bit, but I do think that trend is done.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's so done that I've never even heard of it. I mean, like other than hiding the devil's lettuce in it, like I don't know like what else you're using Altoid tins for. Like
there you go.
That actually is a really good idea.
Pallets. Well, so as my good buddy Paul Jackman, who really appreciates pallets, they are free most often. Yep. So that's a huge plus. I mean, I guess the context is like, what are you making with the pallets? Like, are you making a bunch of shop furniture? Are you making a farmhouse coffee table? Are you repurposing the material into something? Like, are you doing like a lamination? Like, there's so many things that can be done with pallets. So to me, I guess, is the trend dead or is it alive kind of thing? I don't really know. I mean, I guess like the trend's still alive because people like to do stuff with, free materials. So yes, that's probably always going to be around. But I mean, I do think that there's a lot of expression that can be done if you're doing it in cool and unique ways. If you're doing like sort of like almost like creating, like huge blocks of wood and then like resawing it down, all sorts of things, like using it as a veneer even. I mean, it's almost like what Wobie does with skateboards potentially. So, or actually our buddy Andrew Zito as well, another skateboard guy. So, yeah, like there's a lot of variation there, but yes, most of it's hot garbage.
I love that ending. That was a good end.
Yeah.
Strong ending.
Yeah, I kind of have to agree with most of it is hot garbage because you have to put so much work in to make a palette beautiful or even functional in some cases. Like, I don't know. The internet, SEO loves it, but me personally, not so much.
So with palettes, I think Chris nailed it on the head. That and Jesse's, it's so much work to make a palette really nice. And I think and we can maybe talk about this a little bit, and we'll combine one of the ones that came later, is like this rustic look, this like palette, this unfinished palette look is in this rustic look is out, I think. And I hope it did not come back anytime soon, because I'm not a big fan of splinters.
You know what I would love to see? And I mean, I guess if anybody's going to do it, it would probably have to be me, because I don't know anybody insane enough to do it. But to take apart a bunch of palettes and then grain match it so that all, like, say, like if you're doing like a huge lamination, right? Like a big like butcher block kind of thing. So grain match it so all the edge grain is running in the same direction. And that way you can hand plane it like a complete breeze and then do a hand planed finish on a pallet wood, whatever. That would be really, really dope. But I think also just an insane amount of work.
You just got to hook up with Jackman.
Yeah, he's not about that life. He's just going to run through the drum sander.
No, so you hook up. He does the pallet prep. And
like he just breaks down, and then I sit there and I figure out, like, oh, this one is going this way, and blah blah blah. Yeah, that's probably not the worst idea. Yeah, I'm into it.
There you go. So Jackman, reach out, and then because I know you listen. And so you want to talk about anything else about the rustic design? Do you think that's still a trend?
No, and I'm happy, but the people that love it really love it. So, like, it still belongs to them, but that's it.
Yeah, and so, it's weird because, like, there's rustic, right? And then there's this, like, concept of, like, bushcraft, like, sort of, what do you call it? Almost like staked furniture, stuff like that. That's, like, I don't quite want to use rustic in that term, but, I mean, there's things that are a little wonky, right? Like, a little rough around the edges. But really what rustic has become is when somebody makes a shitty piece of furniture and, like, there's a huge glaring mistake and they're like, oh, it's rustic. So, yeah, like that trend can also go die. I mean,
well, how about thinking about trends that I think that should probably just go die are epoxy river everywhere.
So river tables, I think I want to feel like they are kind of on the way, like actually on the way out. Like, not just that we're tired of them, but I do sort of feel like they are a little bit on the way out. But let me tell you, you still see a ton of them because, there's a lot of people that are sort of like new to, I guess, this community and like what we've been doing. And they see this stuff and they're like, oh man. So they're like catching up on like the catalog from a few years ago and starting to like recreate some of the stuff. And you're like, dude, like, no, don't do that. But listen, we've all been there. I mean, I don't think I've ever actually made a river table, so to speak, but like I've done some things that are river-esque and like sort of mirroring the concept of that in a weird way. So, I mean, I get it, but yeah, like it needs to be done. Like,
pretty sad thing.
That was kind of what my take was going to be too. Like, if these people are not making the river tables, what other ridiculous thing are they going to be pouring epoxy for? Like, who even knows? I see the most silly stuff all the time scrolling through the Instructables feeds.
Speaking of like sad things in plastic, so I've been taking these weekend like woodworking classes on Zoom with Kez USA and Andrew Hunter, who's a very renowned furniture maker. He had the cover of Fine Woodworking a couple times, and he sort of, as part of his spiel on wood and like how to understand wood, one of the things he always says is he draws this analogy between wood being like taking a bunch of straws and like bunching them up and like sort of like talking about like the fibers and the structure, right? So he is on Zoom and he like brings out, literally a fistful of like plastic straws. And the first thing, and this is why I'm bringing this up, that I thought of was, and of course he dropped a couple of them, was turtles. And so like now in the back of my head, I have this joke where like Andrew Hunter hates turtles because he's not using paper straws or like other alternative straws. And like he always has his straws all the time in his shop. I'm like, man, like this dude has not gotten on the paper straw game, which frankly, paper straws are hot trash and also need to die.
Yes.
But yeah, there's other alternatives out there. Those seaweed ones are kind of cool. So anyway, Andrew Hunter hates turtles.
You heard it here first, everyone. So on talking about the epoxy river tables, it reminds me of Live Edge, because obviously that's how they make these rivers. But they just, instead of cutting the thing in half and turning it around, they just keep the live edge on the outside. And I wonder I think this like ties in a little bit to the rustic feel as well. But I feel like live edge is on its way out.
That's really hard to say. I think from somebody like coming from a very furniture making perspective, like I think live edge is still usable, but it needs to be done very tastefully, and like it can't be like overly extreme. So I guess like, let's say, you know, and this is like an interior design thing. I'm not an interior designer by any stretch, but like if I walk into a house and they have a live edge coffee table, a live edge dining table, live edge benches around that dining table, and then like their kitchen island is also live edge, and then their kitchen countertops are live edge, like, bro, that's way too much live edge. Like, you need to take your cases of Natty Light and like go somewhere else. Like, this is not like what we're doing here. But I think if you have one of those like super mod houses with a lot of like hard, like right angles, like everything is very square, and then you have something that has a little bit of that curvature and character as an accent piece, I think that has a lot of, you know, really cool promise there. I mean, if you look at like George Nakashima's work, I mean, that's the standard to me for live edge furniture. You know, like you can really see, and if you look at how that's placed too in those homes, and especially in his book, like you'll see like a lot of like sort of like Japanese, like modern Japanese house, like sort of that a little bit, it's not mid-century modern, but it's kind of in that sort of era. But you know, that'll like the table will be the only live edge thing in the entire house. So that's why, you know, that's cool. Like it's a statement as opposed to just I'm painting the entire room in live edge. Yeah.
And I think you've nailed it. Like, I think that's the part of the trend is going back to where, because like I've seen live edge stuff from the 80s, right? And I'm sure it was even before that where it was done small bits of live edge put in a piece, or, you know, like you'd see like a stretcher in live edge with to give that curvature, that to accent that hard top or something. Like, I don't know. I just feel like we're going back that way, and I think that's a good direction, because I think there was just a little bit, it was live edge everywhere, and the cost of live edge was more than getting squared up boards. And you're like, this is weird. This shouldn't happen. Like, usually they cut that off and threw it in the fucking chipper, and now instead we're paying extra for it. It's just...
Yeah. Well, and as someone who lives in Colorado, and orange wooden houses are everything, like all houses are brown and orange and tan and lots of wood on the interior, it seems like. Yeah, it's not dead. And people are really going overboard with it.
All right. I'm going to skip ahead to Lichtenberg burn things.
Lichtenberg figures, yeah.
Yeah. So like when I first started down the woodworking Instagram rabbit hole, it was like live edge epoxy river tables and Lichtenbergs were everything I saw. And I was like, this is so cool. And then I obviously, you know, you get bored of seeing people pour epoxy, and you get bored of seeing live edge. And then I, you know, found out that people die when they do this Lichtenberg thing incorrectly. But I don't see it as much as I saw it in 2018, but every once in a while I'll see them pop up.
I think it's pretty dead. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know if y'all watch How to Cook That on YouTube, Anne Reardon, but she did a huge video about it because YouTube was promoting those videos. So she did a huge video about all the different ways that you can die and be injured, and how many people have been killed in that way. And YouTube actually took her video down telling her, I think it was promoting, like harmful acts or something like that. And she had to basically have the internet scream at YouTube to get it put back up. Yeah.
Wow. I will say, in terms of trends, I once did a Lichtenberg burning and then filled it with epoxy. So
perfect. There you go.
Yeah. That was really big for a while.
Uh-huh.
Well, talking about other things that were really big for a while, and I'm sure you're going to love, Shusugibon, or as it's more correctly called, Yakisugi. What do you think, Chris?
I mean, it's still out there, and people still are stuck on the, sort of misnomer of it. I mean, whatever. I will say that, like, I don't see it as much anymore, to be fair. I really don't. Like, when I do see it, and maybe this is just because I've sort of, I guess, weeded out the accounts that are, not doing the things that I like to see. So, when I see it, it's the people that are doing it in the correct way, or at least attempting to try, to do it in a more traditional way. But it was funny. So a buddy of mine, Honer Farms, he's on TikTok as well as Instagram. Oh, yeah. He was doing a ash version of it. And I'm trying to remember if it was a tabletop, but he was still calling it Yakisugi, and I was sort of messing with him. I was like, dude, that the word sugi actually means cedar, so you can't use that with ash. But anyway, he was doing the little triangle though, like where you take the 3 boards and you lash them together, and then you actually like create this little rocket stove sort of and so that's something I respect. That's something, even if you're misnomering it, calling it whatever, that's dope. It's really, that's impressive. But if you're just taking a bunch of pallet wood and burning the shit out of it and then calling it Shoshugiban, like, nah, I'm messing with that. Like, go burn and die. Like, it's fine.
I love it.
Very strong takes tonight, I know.
I've had this conversation with, I'm not an expert. What's his? I think he stopped Instagramming.
He did, Chris also.
Chris, yeah. And so I had this conversation with him because I actually think that Shusugibon is the correct term for someone taking a bunch of pallet wood and burning it to a crisp, because it's not a real thing. And so that's the term that Americans have given it. Like, I think the problem is that they also call the like appropriate technique that too. But anyways, that's. I think there's places where a burned wood is a nice look, but like everything, it's in moderation and done correctly. I don't know. It's not for me. But things that are for me is pattern plywood. And I haven't done it yet, but I've wanted to do a lot of pattern plywood. And I feel like this is a trend that's about to pop off, and I always feel like it's about to become the next big thing. And I other than Michael Alm and a couple other people, it never seems to like have its moment that you see it take over outside of the maker world.
Well, you know why?
Because a lot of work. Why?
Yes, because it's an assload of work. It's a ridiculous amount of work.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think it looks cool. I don't think like, the way that Michael does it is really, I mean, that's the way it should be done, where it's like very small amounts, it's very tasteful. It's like an accent, where I would be upset with it if I saw it as if it's like, a gigantic, like 8-foot long table, with a complete surface of pattern plywood. I don't know what I would do. I'd probably set it on fire and tell it to burn and die. But, that's sort of the theme of this episode, I guess. But, like there's knife scale. I mean, really what it is, I mean, to be fair, it's just the skateboard thing. Honestly, like it's literally the repurposed skateboard thing, but with a little more of a pattern. I mean, it's the same exact concept. Because all skateboards are really is plywood in colors, and it's just Michael obviously is using some sort of geometry and some actual really it's those, what do you call them? Those like 3D cutting boards, kind of like, so he's using a lot of those like similar-ish patterns to create these, visual effects, and it looks awesome, but it 100% has to be used sparingly. Like, I think drawer fronts are a great application. The tambour that he does is also, another really cool application for it. But as soon as it's spanning like huge, like, I guess, surface area, like that's where it becomes problematic.
I agree. I don't think the work really adds up to the effect at the end. I don't know. There's so much work that goes into it, and some of them are very stunning, but others I am not quite as stunned by, and I feel bad that they spent 100 hours doing that when, there's not enough like contrast or something, and it just doesn't pop.
I'm going to take another jump because we're running. This is a great conversation, but I know that Chris probably has better things to do with his time, and I have to wrap a present before bedtime. So I'm going to jump again. And so a lot of people who are listening, I know, contributed to this list. So if you didn't hear yours,
listen, if you want to throw a couple extra in, listen, it's only 10 o'clock here. I've got plenty of bourbon over here. Like, let's go. Let's do it.
All right. Okay, I'll add a couple back in. Rug tufting.
I mean, it's cool if you like making rugs. I mean, like Keith Decent's a friend of mine, and like I like what he's doing, but I have no interest in it. I like watching it, but I'm not going to make a pizza slice rug. Yeah, like that looks dope, but okay.
I feel like it took over Instagram for a bit. Like every one of my maker friends had one of those super cool looking rug tufting guns, and Keith is the only one I know and he's not even making rugs. I haven't seen him make a rug for a while. I don't see anyone making rugs anymore. Rug tufting is like done, I think.
Yeah.
Like,
I think you might be right. Yeah.
I'm really disappointed in how few cutting a rug jokes were made during the trend. Like, because at some point you got to shear it with the little barber scissors or the, barber shears. Yeah. And I saw 0 jokes about cutting a rug. So honestly,
well, that's your fault. Your fault that you didn't. You should have made the joke on every single one.
No, I can't. I wasn't making the rug, man. I wasn't doing it.
You comment. You just make the comment.
I wasn't cutting a rug. Okay, they were cutting the rug.
Now, here's one that I think is kind of funny. Is Duresta. And it's not like him putting it on everything, but everyone else like tagging their own stuff with Duresta to kind of like, I don't know, be part Duresta, to feel like they're like part with him. And I don't have a problem with it, but I just feel like there's this like little trend happening in the maker community, trying to be a little Duresta everywhere.
So expand upon that a little bit, because I'm curious to see like what you're really trying to point at here.
So these are things that other people have given us, and they said Duresta, and not like him, but like everyone putting Duresta on their stuff. So you see,
so like the stickers, and then like everybody who wants to like take a picture of their Duresta razor knife and that sort of thing, or the ice pick, like every 5 seconds.
I've never done that.
Yeah. So there's a guy, God, I met him. I don't know if it was at the Timber Inn or if it was actually at Maker Camp, but he straight up has Duresta tattooed on his leg. Like like it was like the spray paint looking thing that's like tattooed like on his calf. And he's like an older gentleman too. He's like, I want to say easily in his like 50s, maybe in his 60s. So yeah, people love Jimmy. And listen, I'm sort of guilty of this too, to an extent. Like for at least 2 to 3 YouTube videos, I was doing this thing where I was taking my Duresta ice pick and like throwing it on the table. Like, I don't know if you guys ever seen Nick D. Giovanni. I'm going to maybe butcher his name. He's like a big like Instagram, TikTok food guy. And he does this thing at the start of his videos where he throws his knife into the cutting board. So I was like, oh, like I could do like a fun play on that with, the ice pick. And then of course there were some amazing bloopers because I would never do it correctly the first time. So I'm just like chucking the ice pick and it's like bouncing off, like flying all over the place. But like, it's a twofold thing where like, yes, It is a little weird that everybody just kind of does that. But I mean, if you've met Jimmy, like, you know, that's a lot of it. Like, Jimmy's super dope. So, you know, like, I don't mind supporting him, but also, you know, like, try to not keep that stuff like under your pillow or like, you know, in weird places, or have like your little Duresta shrine with like a hair doll, you know.
When I have an ice pick, but I don't have the Duresta one. I have Austin made me one, but I tried to do the like ice pick throw. And the first one I missed. I was throwing it at a cutting board and I missed it, and it went through my like self-healing mat all the way like into my workbench. And I went, oh shit. I was trying to get it into something that I didn't care about. And then that didn't work. So I was like, oh, fuck, I'll try it again, right? Get it into where the camera was actually pointed. And then I just bent the fucking shit out of it. It like popped in and bent over. And I was like, fuck, I don't know how the hell Jimmy does it. And I know Austin got his ice pick, like blanks or whatever, from the same place that Jimmy got them. So I don't know what's Jimmy doing that made his ice pick so much more... maybe he just has a lot of practice, but mine, I immediately fucked it all up. So
a lot of it too, and I'll say this, is the speed. Like, if you were throwing it, like actually throwing it, it's not going to be a good time. But if you sort of like drop it, like it tends to like just stick. And I noticed so when I was doing it, the very first time I did it perfectly. And I was like, oh man, now I got to get this on video. And that's when I started rolling the camera, and I had like 40 fucking outtakes, because I was just like, boom, and like launching it off the wall, and it's like bouncing off like the cinder block and almost killing me. I was like, oh. So, yeah, there's a lot there. But I mean, like I said, Jimmy's dope. So like, that's cool, but just don't be creepy about it, I guess, is the best, you know, advice I can give. It's the best advice I can give a lot of people. Just don't be creepy about stuff.
Because I like Jimmy, I hope Jimmy's trend is going to go up. That's my prediction. So, there we go. Let's jump over to edgy embroidery, and I think Jesse should take this one.
It's still happening. It's still happening, everyone. I don't think it'll ever die. I feel like every year more people discover embroidery and then suddenly want to put the word fuck with a bunch of flowers on everything. So, yeah, I'm not sure it's ever going to die.
So my wife got into cross-stitching a couple of years ago. So there was like a cross-stitching basket over here. I was like trying to dig through it. Well, so first, to be clear, when you said edgy embroidery, I really didn't know what you meant, because obviously I haven't seen this list before. I've done zero research, and, you know, grossly unprepared for this podcast. But, you know, there's a couple of things that immediately came to mind. I was like, are we just embroidering edges of things? And then like, as like, I was like kind of like marinating a little more. I was like, are we like embroidering lingerie? Like, I don't understand like what's edgy about this now. And then that's when it dawned on me. It was like, oh yeah, it's like the clever cross stitching. And, you know, like actually in my office, which I'm an attorney by day, I have a little cross stitch that my old supervisor from like a number of years back made for me. And it's the initials TFOH, which I used to say this all the time, constantly, is the fuck out of here. You know, just like if you like get like be gone, like I'm done with this. So that sits like clear on my desk in my office. And people always ask me, they're like, what does that mean? And I'm like, the fuck out of here. And they're like, oh, that makes sense. So anyway, I mean, yeah, it's fun. It's cool. I'm into it. I mean, I don't know if I would actually spend money on it, but like if somebody gave it to me as a gift, I'm like, oh, that's cute. You know, like I'm about it.
I don't know. I have no opinion on it, but like if that's what floats your boat, you go for it. Yeah. So another thing that seems to have died down, another trend, but it was hot like 3 years ago when we were doing like the I think just at the end of the Because We Make Enlightenment challenge, around that time period is when this trend, I think, started to die. But I went out and bought an Edison bulb for the challenge and then never used it. It was like putting an Edison bulb in everything. Everywhere there were Edison bulbs. And I don't, the last time I went to the store, I don't even remember seeing one.
I still love Edison bulbs.
But you can love them, but is the trend still happening?
I mean, Depends on the lamp. Like if you have a lamp without a lampshade, yeah, throw all the Edison bulbs in there you want. Like, I mean, it's going to look, amazing. And I guess people are into it. I mean, if you go to like West Elm or Restoration Hardware, like any of those, like there's Edison bulbs all around there, that's still very much a thing. But I mean, if you have a lamp with a lampshade, ain't no need to put in a, $10 Edison bulb in there because you're never going to see it. So, there's that.
I'm not sure they're ever going to go away, honestly. I really feel that they've sort of like achieved a very fancy interior design status. Like, I always see them on Pinterest and on Instagram where it's the sort of like beautiful house and beautiful people sort of thing. Like they're still all over because I think people just think they're much nicer than regular bulbs.
I'll say that regular bulbs have gotten to look good like garbage. Like as soon as we got out of the like tungsten light bulbs, every LED bulb looks like a piece of poop. If it's not in a lamp, like if it's in a lampshade, you can't see it. But if like it's very difficult to find a nice looking bulb that's LED that isn't an Edison bulb or something like. But it used to be you could just buy a clear or a frosted, and they didn't look like garbage. They looked like a light bulb, like it looked fine. But now everything just looks like poop. So
well, now they have obviously the Edison LED bulbs too.
Yes,
like so they like string lights are still. I mean, this kind of goes right into that, right? Like string lights are super trendy. Like every restaurant you go to that has like an outdoor space, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember when I first bought my house, like I got these great string lights from Costco. I was loving them, and then no shit, like I want to say 3 months later, the LED ones came out, and I was so angry because I was like, it's going to last so much longer, it's going to be so much better. Now I got these stupid ones. And those ones even change colors because they're smart, like they're so cool. But yeah, like that's the thing is like the technology, like all they did was they just took something that was obviously old and sweet, and then they made it like even better by adapting it to our modern technology and like energy efficiency. So, I mean, there's no downside to them anymore.
Thinking about those like LEDs that are addressable with different colors, and like Wi-Fi. Do you think that trend is going to go? Like, do you think people are still going to be buying like stupid RGB? Like, I absolutely hate the fact that my laptop has like this RGB bullshit happening on the keyboard, and I can't turn it off. Like I can't turn the lights off, so I just have it set to a single color, and I hate it. I hate it. I hate everything about it. I just want it to be fucking like white. And I guess that's maybe I'm racist. I don't know.
So I'll say this, like I never consider it, right? And even still to this day, like when I go to the store, like to buy bulbs and stuff, I never think I'm like, you know what, this is exactly what I need is some weird color changing smart bulb.
Right.
But let me tell you, every bathroom I've been into, my next door neighbor actually just remodeled his bathroom and it's gorgeous. And one of the coolest things is a stupid light that changes colors. And like, he has people over and like, you don't have to have all the lights off in the bathroom, right? It'll just have like a subtle red glow as opposed to off. And like, that's just, I don't know. It's neat. Like, is it practical? Probably not. Like, do you need it? But it's definitely a statement thing. Like, and it's something I remember. I'm like, like that looks.
But is it a trend? Is it trendy and it's going to go away? Because that's what I feel about it.
I don't think it's going to go away.
No? Why do you say that?
Well, people are going more and more and more towards smart everything in their house. And so, I don't know, like the lighting, I agree. I don't have anything, but I'm a tech person, so I don't trust it. But a lot of people love that. And I think a lot of people really love the idea of just having like a remote on their phone to control their entire house and all the colors of the lighting. Because that's one of the things I always see people highlighting when they post like an Internet of Things or a smart home instructable. It's always like, oh, and we also have these RGB LED light strips all over the fucking place, so it's always a big selling point for people.
And click my Amazon affiliate link to make money on that. And that's why I'm highlighting it. It has nothing to do with anything else. I feel like that's all this shit is just a way for people to advertise. Like, I need a new garage door opener. I would like one that opens my garage door and does fucking nothing else. I don't even want a goddamn light on it. I just want it to open the garage door. And it's like, you cannot find that unless you get a commercial one, which costs more. I'm like, this is stupid. I should be able to find a home one that just opens my goddamn door like the one from 1970 that just broke. Like, come on.
This is going to be like sort of a tie-in story to my Anne of all trades story before, but like her husband Adam on their new property had like, there's this gazebo out there, and during the pandemic he made it sort of his project, and it's called, well, he calls it the Tiki Hut. I think he actually has his own Instagram account for it, but it's this automated sort of thing. So Adam used to work for Amazon, so this whole thing is Alexa controlled. So you walk in there and you give it like specific commands, and it sets the mood lighting on these like various, colors of lights, plays music automatically, does like all these. I mean, the thing's crazy. Like it's super funny. He's got it so dialed, like where he'll be like, play or set the mood, to X. Like, let's just use that. And all of a sudden, like 5 things trigger, and it just does it. So there is this whole market for that like automation thing. Mm-hmm. So I think that's where, a lot of that, as Jesse kind of said, it's not going to die, but like, there is a like route for that. It might not necessarily be solely tied into colored lights, but there's automation is in, and it's not going anywhere. If anything, it's going to get way worse.
Yeah.
Well, I hate it. I hate every single thing about it. So, you know what? A part of me wants to go back to fucking having like a carbureted car, because fuck the computers. But I don't know. The last one, and I mentioned this even though it's not relevant anymore. But woodworkers with facial hair.
I mean, the last time you saw me, Grant, in person, I had a mustache. So,
Exactly. And it's not relevant anymore. I still see like it can grow there, but it's.
Yeah, like this is just me being lazy. This isn't an intentional mustache. This is just 3 days of, work week sadness. Yeah, like, I mean, I think it's still there, like, I don't even know if it's really related to woodworking. I think it's just like bros being bros, to be fair. Like, there's plenty of hipsters and other folks out there with all variations of facial hair.
Right.
So, whether it's specific to our community, I don't know. I mean, Jesse, like, are there a bunch of embroidery folks out there with like monster build or beards and mustaches and unique ways?
Nope. I know of one guy who quilts and has a really awesome beard, and that's about all I can think in the fabric world. I definitely see more with woodworkers, but not metalworkers.
I have a beard because I'm lazy, and that's the only reason.
So I know you said that was the last one, but can we do a hard rewind back to the first one that you sort of mentioned that we never really got to talk about, which is this pencil sharpening thing?
Yeah. Let's rewind it and cap it off with that.
Yeah, just full circle back. So I think that was like a really fun, really cool thing. I love the fact that like Jimmy got on it. What I hate about it is the fact that people then turn around and attribute it to Jimmy as opposed to attributing to the source, which is the podcast. And that like drives me nuts. And actually I remember, and to be completely fair, like I rarely listen to the Working Hands podcast. I have so many podcasts that are not even maker related. I just don't get to a lot of stuff. But like, I thought it was such a cool idea. I was like, man, like I really want to make like just a stupid video of me using like chisels and a Japanese hand plane to just sharpen a pencil to the most like ridiculous standard that would be, it'd just be the most unnecessary video of all time. But I would have dedicated an entire day to that just for the sake of doing it. And then as soon as like, because I'm busy and also I'm busy but lazy. It's a weird balance. But like as soon as I saw like Jimmy got on it, I was like, oh, that's really cool. And then I was like, oh, you know what's going to happen is everybody's going to start doing this even more. And then obviously that's when I started seeing that. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do this now. Like, cause I don't want to sort of draw attention from the source, but you know, like that's to me, like one of the bummer things about it is like, yes, it is awesome. And I think it's such a cool idea, but it bums me out that people who like are not into the podcast and all that, like are sort of utilizing it because they think Jimmy's the one who created it, as opposed to, it's more becoming a thing of like, hey, this is how I can be trending, as opposed to, yeah, like I'm a podcast listener and this is like our inside joke.
And I think that's with a lot of like these pop-up trends is often the trendsetter gets like missed. And like the person who started it all. But Jimmy, like, I don't know if you listen to Making It, but Jimmy was like, it's not me, it's them. Right? And he's like, it wasn't me, it was them. And he said it like 5 times. And so like I don't think Jimmy knew it came from them originally. He just saw someone sharpening a pencil and went, I'm going to sharpen a pencil. And then as soon as he found out where it was from, he started tagging them and sharing their stuff. And I think it's great. I did like, you know, I saw them, they did the podcast. I saw one person do one and I was like, oh, I immediately had an idea and I put out a video and it was fun. Like I used a spoke shave because I actually use my spoke shave for sharpening my pencil in the shop all the time. It's literally my go-to pencil sharpener.
That's sad.
Well, I got to use my spoke
It
shave.
upsets me in like all sorts of like weird ways. Oh God, I just dropped my AirPod. Yeah, like I have a buddy of mine who he uses a block plane to sharpen pencils. And actually, now that I think about it, there is a product out there that is a like super mini brass block plane that is specifically designed for pencil sharpening. I remember seeing that ad on Instagram a bunch of times. But yeah, like block plane, I don't know, like the idea, and that's another thing, right? That was one of like the sort of jokes I was going to make sort of in producing this video, is that like my sort of precious hand tools that are, you know, X amount of years old are, oh God, I just got hit with a bunch of dogs.
I could hear the tails.
Oh gosh. All right. But yeah, like I didn't want to sort of spoil them on like graphite and, you know, other things of that sort. And of course, that is exactly what I was prepared to do to make this work.
So then the question becomes like and we'll put the pin on it on this one, is like, are trends, like, should you get on a trend early? If you think it's early, should you jump on it? And if it's too late, should you jump on it anyways? Because guess what? That fun video you wanted to make, it would still be a fun video. And I'd still like to see it. And I'm sure all your fans would still like to see it. Even if you posted it a year from now, like it would be a funny joke and like a callback. I just think like, if something inspires you to get out in the shop and do something fun, you should take it, regardless if it's overplayed. If you come up with a fun 10 Sigrity table, and even if someone's already done it, and it inspires you to make it, fucking do it.
I've had this idea of making a sandwich entirely using hand tools. Like, yeah, literally like using a plane and like shaving meat, and then like using like a chisel to like cut my vegetables and stuff like that. I thought it'd be a fun idea. And now that I'm making sourdough bread, now that I'm making sourdough bread randomly, I could really like just encompass the whole thing into it.
I like it.
Yeah, like I agree with you. You know, like you just do the thing. And honestly, like to be fair, like that's kind of my channel and stuff. Like I don't really pre-plan a lot of stuff. I don't say like, oh, like, you know, and I guess this ties into this whole concept of being trending, right? Like I don't plan my content around what I think is trending. I plan my content about what I want to do and what I think is interesting. And then I just do it. And whether or not it's successful or not, like, hey, you know, like I don't really worry about it so much. I mean, yes, like would I prefer it to be more successful? Absolutely. And, you know, sometimes I get lucky, but, you know, ultimately it's just like, I want to have fun. I want to do some cool stuff. I mean, you know, I'm as I spent the last time when I was on this show, I probably rambled on about Japanese tools for about an hour and a half. So, like I want to do the stuff I want to do with the tools I want to make them with. So, right. if you're inspired by a trend, then yeah, go nuts, like do it.
Yeah, I agree. If you're inspired for it, go for it. But don't push yourself to do every single trend. I see a lot of people doing that, and I just wonder how quick before you burn out and decide you hate this. I think it really is important to do what you want to do. And if it works out, it works out. But, the trend is not a guarantee that you're going to get more views for the amount of effort you put in.
That is such a good point.
And it's an authenticity thing too. So, you got to think like if you're doing something that you don't typically do, or that's like so far outside of your box because you're trying to follow a trend, then you're attracting a bunch of folks that are going to be expecting that of you moving forward. Right. Mm-hmm. So then you're creating a greater problem, which is like, you're sort of like building this audience that is not really for you. They're for that trend.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Good point. Well, you know what I think is trendy? Becoming a supporter of this show. And I want to thank the people who've done that, including the F-Clamp level, Brent Jarvis from Clean Cut Woodworking, Vincent Ferrari from Digitally Creative, Scott Orm from Dad It Yourself DIY, Joe Herdina, Lawrence from Maritime Knife Supply, Rich from Low End Design, and David Wood from DW Wood Builds, who was the trendsetter for the Working Hands podcast Woodworker. He was the first one to put out a video sharpening a pencil. So if you want to be a trendy person, you can go find us at patreon.com/clamp, and that'll get you access to the pre-show where we had a great conversation with Chris and Jesse, and also the after show where we're going to have an even greater, more awesome conversation, or not, I don't know. And you also get a leather keychain made by me. So yeah, head on over.
Is it your finest work? Is that what the leather keychain is?
Yeah. 100%.
Is it a representation of your finest work?
It is a representation of work.
This is like a weird joke that like carried over from the last time I was on here, but I do want to shout out David really quick because David is awesome, and I know he's obviously a supporter of your podcast. But like every time, I mean, honestly, like David to me personally is like. It feels like one of my biggest supporters too. Like I saw him at Workbench Con. I see him at all the Maker Camp events and everything. Like he's really, really great. So, shout out to David.
Yeah, he's a good guy. And now CLAMPmendations.
CLAMPmendations.
Oh God, can you see it? I mean, I know this is really
of wood joints.
So yes, the Encyclopedia of Wood Joints by Wolfram Grobner. That's a mouthful. So this book was something that Andrew Hunter, the furniture maker, had referenced in one of his classes. And he was just sort of like going over some good literature that we should all be having, especially people that are like enthusiastic about Japanese woodworking. And he said that, he came across that book a number of years back, just sort of saw it and just sort of brushed it aside. He's been somebody that's been a practitioner with Japanese tools for over 20 years. And he said, like, sort of early in his journey, he saw it and he didn't see the word Japanese and he's just like, whatever. And like, kind of just, shoved it back in the pile. And then recently he was at Jay Van Arsdale's shop, who's another like extreme, like awesome American Japanese practitioner. And he had it. So he started flipping through it and he realized that like literally every joint in this book is a Japanese joint. There's just all kinds of like variations on it. And it gives like super detailed 3D models of them. And it actually shows them like how they work, how they fit, gives like, proper dimensioning ratios. So it is extremely valuable. And I probably bought this one on Amazon for, I want to say, and it's used for about $9. So wow. It is extremely cheap. So if you are interested in wood joinery, especially Japanese style wood joinery, then that is an excellent book.
Does it include butt joints and pocket hole screws?
It does not.
Oh. All right, I'll have to check it out then, because I'm a master at those. my recommendation, and I think he's been a recommendation on here before. I think as Dean, when he was co-hosting, made a recommendation. But Nicholas Birchtold from Birchtold Design Build on Instagram, he's doing this really cool maker project with all the maker scans. He cut the heads off and did the milling into a mallet, and I think it's really cool, and it really makes me regret feeling like weird about getting scanned by Dave at Maker Camp, and for some reason I didn't bother getting scanned, and so now I'm not part of the first 80, so I'm not going to be on his little wall there, so makes me sad, but also it's really cool, and you guys should go check it out. And apparently he's going to be putting out a YouTube video of it, which is going to be really cool too.
So for me this week, I would like to recommend Hogwarts Legacy. I have only played it for 5 hours, but it's amazing. And honestly, everything I've wanted from a Harry Potter game since the series ended. It's super immersive. I mean, I have been running around the castle and being able to see landmarks, recognizing things. Or like I found Hagrid's hut, even though he doesn't live there, last night and got super excited, had to show my partner, like freaked out. Yeah, I'm really excited about it. And it seems like there's a bigger world map than I expected because I'm really not very far. But I'm going to guarantee that I'm going to love it all the way through. Because it's, the graphics are beautiful. The amount of things that you can actually do in the game, like I'm taking classes. I just finished a potions class last night. Like, yeah, I've been nerding out pretty hard for the last few days.
Do they like really differentiate between like Leviosa and Leviosa? Is that
so? They say Levioso in the game, which totally threw me off. Like, I'm wondering if they couldn't get the rights to everything because there's no actual like relation to the books. None of the characters carry over. It's real weird.
That's got to be exactly what that is. It's a rights issue. They probably just didn't want to have to pay. What's her face? I'm reading it right now.
The Queen Turf.
You know.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and for the record, I feel as I should say, as a queer woman who loves many trans people, I hate J.K. Rowling. Just for the record, I feel like I should put that out there. And I'm not going to let her hatefulness stop me from enjoying this game. I've been waiting goddamn forever for.
What platforms is it on? Like, is it like a
probably all of them? I think it isn't out on Switch yet. I think it's coming later. But Steam, PlayStation 5, Xbox. I'm pretty sure because I'm playing it on PS5. So, and I think my partner has it on Steam.
You bought it twice. Yes. Okay, I don't.
We cannot share a video game. We're adults.
Okay. We haven't asked Jesse anything. So thank you for Nick from NHP, not MPH. That's what I thought first, and then I couldn't find him when I went to look him up. NHP, 1967. And his question is, does Jesse work more productively in the morning or afternoon?
100% the morning. Because all of my animals have full bellies and they've gone outside and then they all take a nap. And I get so much done because it's, the afternoon, you never know. They could take a nap. They could be wrestling on the couch and screaming at each other. You never really know. So it's, definitely the morning.
Well, since we got a guest, what about you, Chris? Morning or afternoon?
That's a tricky question. I've never been a morning person. I will say though that it's like events and stuff. So like when I go to say the Timber Inn, stuff like that, like I'm up early for one reason or another. I don't know why. Maybe it's just like the adrenaline, the excitement kind of thing. But like here, like at the shop, just kind of, great example is going to be tomorrow, right? Like I got plenty of stuff to do after coffee, dicking around on social media for a couple hours, playing some stupid video games on my phone for, another 45 minutes while I'm drinking my coffee. I'll probably make it to the shop around 11, and that's kind of, I'll power through. I'm not great about eating lunch on the weekends just because of that sort of reason. But yeah, for the most part, like I'm like a late morning, all the way through kind of guy.
All right. I would say I'm not productive in the morning or afternoon. So there we go.
Some days are like that.
No, so I'm more of an evening productivity person, as long as I haven't been drinking. But I want to thank TF Turning for the theme song, and if I understand it correctly, it should be a new one this week. So thank you very much, Tim. And I want to thank Chris from Cowdog coming on over. Why don't you tell everyone where to find you in case they didn't listen to the episode like 5 episodes ago?
So I am Cowdog Craftworks on everything except Twitter, where I am Cowdog Craftwork because they don't allow extra characters past that. And yes, I'm on every platform, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you think you can find me, you can probably find me. Except what's that weird, like super right-wing Republican one? I don't know. There's that
Parlor.
Yes, that one. I'm not there.
I was thinking Truth Social, but I think that's just Trump's network.
Yeah, right. So I mean, I'm on all standard normal platforms for the most part.
Okay. I just don't want to get into that conversation. Maybe we can talk about it in the after show. So thank you. You can find us everywhere by searching Clamp Podcast, and you can find Jesse at Jesse Ratfink and Grant at the Grant Alexander. And until next time, cheers. Have a great day.
Bye.